9 a.m. Mountain Time. So we'll go ahead and get started. Hey, thank you everyone so much for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Robbie on behalf of the marketing team here at PSTrax. I'm also joined with Sally, and Ryan will also jump in towards the end. We have a pretty exciting webinar for you all today. Sally, I'm going to hand it over to her in a moment. We are going to do some high-level touches on all 6 of our modules, and our 7th we're going to preview as well. That is the inventory module. Our team has worked very hard over the last year here for this. We are super excited. It's basically like a week before Christmas, and you know, you're tiptoeing across the house and you get to peek up that present, take a quick look, and then immediately put it away, because we're not just going to launch it just yet, but we're happy to bring it to you and show you a little bit more about it. So on my side too, I have, let's see, some questions. If you have questions as we go through, because we want to get to the inventory module, I'd like to, you know, keep them as brief as possible, but you're welcome to ask in the Q&A section, or you can drop us a question in the chat. So Sally, without further ado, I will pass it off to you, and you can outline what our attendees today can expect.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Good morning. So excited to be here. We do these monthly, and this is always very exciting for us, especially when we have new information to share with you. We are going to do our very best to keep this at an hour, but because we have so much information, it's going to be very high level. If at any time you're thinking, you know what, I need to learn more about this, you can always set up individual one-on-one meetings with us as well, and we would be happy to do that. I see a lot of people joining us today, and it looks like about half of you are current clients, so welcome. This might just be a little review for you, and it looks like the other half of you have, this is the first time that you're seeing us, so we're excited to share the information with you. As Robbie said, we're going to touch on all 6 of the modules today. Again, it will be very high level, and then we're going to touch on that 7th module. We know that 2020 has not been the best year for any of us, and so we're hoping this will make your year wonderful. We know it's going to make our 2020 much better, so we're excited to share it with you. And like I said, we'll touch on it today. Ryan will go over a little bit of it, and then we will be doing a full webinar on that module, particularly at the end of the month. So we'll go over dates and times for that as well. So I would encourage, and it looks like a lot of you have actually signed up for that one as well. So excited to see that. So let me go ahead and get started so that we stay on time as best we can. If at any time you guys have to jump off, if we get to the end and it's gone over a little bit and you just have to go, no worries, we're recording this. So you can always ask for, we'll send you that recording. Robbie will send you that recording at the end of this as well. So thank you for joining us, and let's go ahead and get started. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. Robbie, is it good on your side?
You are good to go, Sally.
Excellent, perfect, thank you. All right, so let's go ahead and just give you a little bit of background here on PSTrax. We do currently work with over 400 agencies, both you know, fire departments, EMS departments, as well as in the private sector as well. So if you're joining us from the private sector, we're excited to have you. We do know that you need us as much as anybody. So I love to share with people that we have a 98.5% retention rate. We are across the entire United States, up in Canada, and down in Australia as well. So we've got our presence is growing down in Australia. We just brought on Royal Flying Doctors down there, and they were excited to bring us on down there. We do work with all department types, not only paid, but combination, volunteer, as well as in the private sector as well. PSTrax is short for Public Safety Tracking Systems, and we were founded back in 2009. And we basically came to be because the owner's daughter is a fire medic, and she was doing all of her checks on their rigs on paper at the time, and found it to be very cumbersome, and reached out to her dad, the owner of the company, and said, hey, you know, you're good at creating things on computers. Can you put something together for us to be able to do our checks online? And so here we are almost 12 years later with the platform that we're going to share with you today. We are located in Littleton, Colorado, about 10 miles south of the Denver metro area. If any of you are familiar with this area, that's where we are. And like I mentioned, we have about 10 plus years of experience with agencies and departments of all sizes. One of the things that we did when PSTrax was put together, because we recognized that about 80% of the departments that we work with are still on paper, we recognize that's a very cumbersome and clunky system. And so the goal of PSTrax is to be able to take any of the checks that you're doing on any of the modules that we're going to go over. And what we want to be able to do is put those into a platform where you can go in, do your checks online, run any reports that you may need to run seamlessly and effortlessly, okay? We also recognize that none of you guys do it the same. When we first developed this and shared it with the first department, Blackhawk, that we worked with, they loved it, they were excited about it, and they were like, you should share this with other departments. And as we started doing that, we didn't know this back then, but as we started doing that, we recognized very quickly that none of you guys do it the same anywhere. You all have different naming conventions, you have different internal policies and procedures that you follow. And so we found out that it wasn't really fair for us to create this box and expect you guys to fit into it. It just didn't work that way. So we kind of had to go back to the drawing board. And what the owner decided at that point in time was that we needed to make sure that anything that was put together it met everybody's needs individually. So, you know, what you might be doing down in Florida or out in Australia, over in California, or right here in Colorado, it may not, none of it's going to look the same across the board. So anything that we do for you is going to be specific to what your agency or department needs. The other thing that we found out is when we just handed this to people, and those of you who are with us can attest to this, if we just hand you something and say, okay, here you go, now you build it, nobody had time to do that. And so it ended up just sitting there, kind of like what Ryan has taught us in the past. It's called shelfware. You buy this program and then it just sits there. Nobody has time to build it, and it never gets implemented and it never gets rolled out. So the other thing that the owner decided to do at that point in time was to put a team of people together here in Littleton, and that team of people builds your platform from the ground up for you guys, okay? You send us whatever you have in whatever format you have. We take that information and our build team builds it for you. That way it looks exactly the way you want it to look. The naming conventions meet what you need, and everything goes in nice and clean. As long as that information is going in cleanly, then we know when it's time to roll this out for you, it's going to work well for you. We don't want to have junk in and then junk out. So you send us the information, we build it for you, and then we hand it back to you. And that way we can also guarantee that it gets rolled out. And those of you who've been with us a while, and I see several of you here, you know that to be true. And we've got one of the things that we really believe in, and we're not willing to negotiate in any way, is our customer service. That's the other thing that you're going to get with PSTrax. Once you decide to move forward with us, we basically become your administrative assistants moving forward, and we are here to make sure that everything works the way you need it to work. So these are some really important key factors to keep in mind as we're going through this today. So what we're going to do is we're going to touch on the 6 modules that you see here. We do have our vehicles. What started as a vehicle check system has now grown into what you see here on the screen. So we've got vehicles, SCBA, stations, PPE, controlled substance or narcotics, and critical assets. With PSTrax, you do have the ability to pick and choose between the modules. So if at the end of this you guys are like, this is great, but really we just care about our vehicles right now, or hey, you just introduced this great new inventory module that we're excited about, that's the one we want to wait to learn more about. Perfect. Start with whatever makes the most sense for your department, okay? We always encourage that. Don't overdo it. If you don't need everything, don't do everything. That's why we break it down the way we do, so that you're able to get what meets your department's needs. All of the modules function very similarly, with the exception of the narcotics module. It does operate a little bit differently. So we'll go through all of them, but you'll kind of start to see a pattern as we go through. We wanted to make this as user-friendly as possible for crew members and for your staff to be able to go in and use these. So you'll see that whether we're talking about doing a check on something, setting an alert, running a report, things like that, it's all going to function very similarly, okay? So we'll go over that here in just a minute. I'll take us into our demo site and walk you through some things here in just a minute. Other things that are really important to keep in mind, this is not an app, okay? This is not an app. It is a cloud-based platform. There's several reasons we went that route. Number one, it's not going to take up any data or storage on any of the devices that you might decide to use. We see things, you know, iPads, tough books, but I would say a majority of our checks currently come through some sort of cell phone. device. So it's going to work with all of those devices very well. As long as you've got internet access, it's going to work with those devices. The other reason we went that route is because you can have multiple people doing checks all at the same time. All right, this was really important to a lot of the departments when we were developing this early on. People didn't want to be limited to just one person being able to go out at a time and slowing the system down. So with PSTrax being a cloud-based system, you can have multiple people on one rig all at the same time doing those checks. Everything comes off in real time and it doesn't slow the system down. Also, because it's not an app, there are no user license fees. All right, so you can have as many people using your platform as you need to. You can have outside vendors who can be involved in that. We can have as many people as we need using the platform. So that was another really important reason for us to do that. It is a cloud-based data that belongs to you. So if for whatever reason in the future, for any reason, you can't stay with us, who knows why, but I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic right now. Who would have expected anything like this? But so let's say for whatever reason, you cannot stay with us any longer. You will always have access to your archived information. It belongs to you. So if you need to get in there and pull that information back out, you'll be able to get that. We already talked about it being built to your exact specifications. This is really important and one of the things that our departments love. Okay, and I kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier. You can make adjustments or we can make adjustments for you. So we understand, and I've said this to many of you that are in now with us today, but I have said before, we understand that in every department, there's usually one, maybe two people who really love technology. And if you've got people like that, that's great. We will sit down with them. We will teach them how to navigate the back end of the system, add things, move things around as needed. But if you're like a majority of our departments and you do not have people like that on your crew or on your staff, or if you're like me and you just don't have 5 extra minutes in your day to set aside to do things like that, that's when you reach out to us, okay? Like I mentioned to you before, we become your administrative assistants moving forward. I'm always asked, is there a limit to the amount of time that we get a year? Are there additional fees for that? And the answer is no. Okay, there are no additional fees and there's no limit to the number of times that you can reach out to us. Our production manager can attest to that, as can I. We are getting emails and phone calls daily to be able to help you guys. So if you need that from us, that's what we're here for. That's all part of your annual license fee. There's no additional fee for that. We want to make sure that we're helping you be successful with the platform. We talked about each schedule being custom built, and the platform does mobilely optimize to fit whatever device you're using. So whether it is an iPad or a phone or what have you, it's going to fit that device nicely. As a quick snapshot, here's just kind of a snapshot of another department's home screen. Again, I just wanted you to kind of have an idea of what it looks like before we go into the demo site. So you can see here, here's the schedule of items that are due for the day. All right, you can have these in whatever order you want them in. You can name these whatever you want. Everything is fully customizable. These are the alerts. Now, the alerts are really the backbone of the platform, everybody. Those of you who are using us can attest to this. These alerts are what keep everybody on the same page. Those of you who are currently maybe using a paper-based system, you know how impossible it can be to notify the appropriate people at the appropriate time of what's going on, whether it's an email or a sticky note or you're writing it on a whiteboard. This replaces that and makes it really efficient, okay? And we'll show you what how those alerts function when we get to that. And then this is our journal. I liken this to a virtual whiteboard. Okay, if you're not currently using the journal and you're a current client of ours, please let us know and we'll get this implemented for you. This is just another really convenient way to keep those lines of communication open. All right, we know how busy you are. You might go on 12, 15, 20 calls in one day. And it's sometimes really nice to just say, you know, put whatever information you need to put on this journal to keep everybody on the same page. So it's another great portion of the platform. If you're not currently using it, let's get you set up on that. Let's talk about the alerts really quickly. Again, like I mentioned, this is not an app. This is simply an icon that we would teach you how to put on whatever device you're using. Everybody has a unique username and password, all right? So they're gonna go ahead and log in. And here again, just as an example here, you can see if they're doing their checks, if it looks good, they're gonna mark it in green. If there's a problem, they're going to mark it in red, which is going to start that alert function. Anywhere that you see a red highlighted box, that is a required note. So basically that means they're going to have to put something in there in order to complete that check. If they leave it blank and they try to mark that check as done, it's going to give them a hard stop and make them go back and fill that in. And you can have required notes on anything and everything if you want, just based on whatever you think is most important at that time. The other thing that you can do, that was actually our first department's idea up in Blackhawk, is you can take a picture of whatever the problem is and attach that to that alert. All right. They were like, wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have to type everything out? We could just, you know, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Couldn't we just take a picture of it and attach it? So our developers put that together, and you can take a picture of the problem, attach it to that alert, and that picture is going to stay with that alert indefinitely. So even after the alert's been closed off and put into the archives, if in the future you need to pull that information out, we can go in there and help you do that, or you could go in there yourself. So if you are currently using the platform and you maybe have forgotten about this feature, let's walk through that together, all right? So that you can, because I see that sometimes people forget that that's an option within the system. There's no additional fee for this, it's part of the platform. So if you're not using that, let's make sure we get that going for you as well. Couple other things on the alert feature, and then we'll move into the demo site here. Again, you can see here we did a little, you know, a check. This looks good. Maybe here we added a little bit of air, but here you see we have a flat tire. So we're going to go ahead and set that alert now. Once that alert is set, it's either going to text, email, or both off to the appropriate person or group of people. All right. So like I mentioned earlier, you know, maybe this, you know, flat tire, this is going to go off to your maintenance shop. You've got somebody in charge there. They're going to be the ones who get that alert. Maybe you've got a PPE vendor that you use for repairs, and somebody's got a tear in their jacket and you need to notify that outside vendor of a repair coming down the road. Those people can be involved too. We have some departments where the chief wants to see every single alert that comes through the system. This is not something I'd recommend, but if you have someone like that and they would like to see all the alerts, we will set it up that way. You just need to, what I invite people to do is look at whatever your internal policies and procedures are, and let's go ahead and make sure it's set up to meet your needs that way. So what I'm going to do, let me go over to my other screen here. I'm going to bring over our demo site for us, and let's get logged in here.
Hey, Sally, can I jump in and interrupt you real quick?
No, it allows me to get a drink of water.
Yeah, take a quick moment. Hey, I got a couple questions coming in. Brian is asking, I'll just have you answer these live on the air. Is there, Brian, thank you for the question. Is there an option to use the app for hourly time recording or admin as part-time folks?
As hourly time recording? At this time, there is not. That's not something in the platform that is available. We are always, though, this, and anybody can tell you that currently uses us, this platform is ever evolving, okay? I have been here a little over 3 years now, and I have yet to not see our developers come up with the most amazing things to implement. And the reason that happens is because of what you just said, that question there. Those questions or that feedback we get, those you know, those ideas that you all have is the reason that PSTrax is where it is today. Okay, it's the reason that we have the modules that we have. It's the reason that we're bringing the inventory module on. It's the reason we developed the COVID checklist. Honestly, it's because of the feedback we get from you guys. So what I would encourage you to do, that's a great question. Robbie, we'll document that and we'll send that. Ryan, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, Sally, I was just kind of thinking, it's Brian, to your question about the hourly time tracking. Tracks, we aren't a full scheduling system by any means, but one option you could do within the system is we could create basically an as-needed checklist within our checks. And so what that means is you could have your people go in and basically document in that checklist how many hours they were, you know, at the station, for example. And so we could create that checklist, and you can make the different checks required to always make sure that you capture the information that you want to capture. That would just require the crew members going in and just logging that. But as long as they're logging that checklist, you'd have a record of it. So I know with ISO ratings, that's a big component, just being able to show, you know, who you have at the stations and how many hours they're there. So that would be one way that you could kind of document that information.
Absolutely.
So sorry, Sally.
No,
Great.
absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. And as to speak to what Ryan just said, there's always, those questions are always being presented to us. And our production team is amazing. If we don't have it specifically kind of what you're looking for, I can tell you right now, they will bend over backwards to make sure that there's another way to hopefully make it work for you. And so Ryan is absolutely right. That is an option that I'm sure other departments have used in the past. So you would just need to kind of share that information with us. Yeah. Robbie, were there other questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple more. Thanks, guys. And Susan's asking, thank you for the question, Susan. We mentioned, obviously our clients own their own data. And what data does that export into? What kind of file? If you can explain that a little further.
They can, Ryan, you're probably better at that answer than I am. Sorry, that's one of those where I'm and technology guy over here.
Susan, you can export it into a CSV or a PDF file as well as a print format. So those are kind of the three options available, and you can go into the system and export all that data whenever you need it.
And I do know that we also have other departments that will take the data and they'll drop it into their own server every 6 months or so, just to have that right there on their own server. So that's an option as well. So you're not necessarily having to put it into a file. It would be right there on your own server.
Great.
Excellent. Good question.
Another question from Susan too. Something that we commonly address is, you know, how do we prevent pencil whipping? You know, someone checking everything off, or maybe in this case with our system, even just sitting at their desk. You know, how could someone be sitting at their desk and not actually being at the unit that is being assessed? If you want to touch
Absolutely. On that. Let's do this. I'm going to take us into the demo site because I think what I'm going to show you is going to answer that question for you, because that is a common concern, and we hear that all the time. We hear, you know, if you're just using paper, how can you assure that they're not sitting there at their, you know, in front of their TV at their house and doing, you know, their checks just on a piece of paper? So we understand that, and that's a very common question. So let's do this. Let me go into the demo site for you, and let's go over some of the ways that will help. First of all, right here, you're going to see that I'm going to log in using my username and password. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and sign in. What's important to keep in mind here is now everything that I'm doing from this moment forward is going to be tied to my name. All right, it's going to be linked to me. So any checks that I make, any notes that I make are all going to be linked back to me. Also, everything within the system is date and time stamped. All right, so if all of a sudden you're looking at, you know, Joe Firefighter's checks and he does everything in 25 seconds and there's 100 checks that he just did in 25 seconds, chances are you might want to have a sit-down chat with him and see what was going on there. Another way that a lot of our departments will work with that scenario is including those required notes, like I mentioned earlier. If you put a required note on something as they're going through and filling that in, if you want them like to actually check the tire pressure every time and not just kick the tires and walk on, you're going to put that required note in there, which means they're going to have to measure that tire pressure. They're going to have to then input that information. So there's several ways to make sure there's a lot of accountability within the system. So let me do this. This is our demo site, everyone, okay? So this is a very simple, we've got it very simple, just so when we do our demonstrations, you can kind of see what we have set up here. This is our schedule of items that are due for the day. Again, everything that's on here is completely customizable. You can name these, have these in whatever order you want, all right? Here are our alerts. All right, now our alerts are on our demo site are scheduled to be on here for 14 days. This is customizable as well. You can have these stay on your home screen for 30 days, 90 days, 187 days, whatever you'd like. Also, anything that's marked urgent is going to stay on here until the appropriate person who's assigned to close urgent alerts off gets in there and closes those off. And we're going to walk through all this together. And then here's our journal. All right, so on our journal, we have things like trainings, station tours, emergency calls. If I were to add a post really quickly here, just so you can see what this looks like, you can see that we can, here's our date, here's our different categories. These are some of the most popular categories we've seen so far, but you can name these whatever you want. You know, you can have as many or as few as you want in here. You can also do your post, add attachments. So maybe you want to add a PDF of something, a picture of something, you can add that in there. You know, maybe for today's training, you know, for this webinar today, maybe what you put on here was, you know, PSTrax webinar, and then here is your attachment. You attach the link for them to sign up and do that. You can do that within the system. You can make this station specific or department wide. So I just kind of wanted to show you what that looked like. But what I'm going to do for you guys now is I'm going to start with the vehicle checks, okay? Because once you learn how to do the vehicle checks and set alerts, then the rest of the modules all fall into place, all right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what it would look like for a crew member to do some checks, make a note, set an alert, and move on. So you can see what that process looks like. Now, for those of you who are already using the system, bear with us while we share this with those who are not. I know that a lot of you are familiar with it, but we'll just kind of be brief on that so that everybody gets to see it here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to work on engine 1. And you're going to see that I have 127 items due. I always like to tell people, don't let this freak you out, okay? This might not be this number for you. Because the system is set up so specifically, this is the number of items that are due for today. Tomorrow, that number might look a lot less or a little bit more. So let's go ahead. We'll click into the items that are due for the day. And a couple things that I want to point out to you here, all right? First of all, crew and staff is never going to have to guess what's due for the day. When you have us set this up for you, you let us know what you want daily, weekly, monthly, however you want that set up, you let us know what you want that to look like. Because all we want crew to know is they are going to go in here and do these checks and get them done for the day and move on with their day. So they know that today I've got some daily checks due. You know, I've got, these are my weekly checks that are due. Here's my monthly inventory. It's the first of the month, so that might be why our number is a little bit higher, because I know that in our demo site, we do all of our monthly inventory on the first of the month. So here we are, first of the month. We've got a lot of monthly to do, so on and so forth. This might be every third Tuesday. This might be annual checks down here. We'll set it up however you want that set up. It's the first thing I want to point out. The second thing that I want to show you is anywhere that you see one of these little eyeballs, you can click on this. This is going to give you a quick snapshot of the most recent tasks and task history of what was done for that particular check. Another thing I wanted to show you, here's our little pencil. This would be a drop-down note. So if they needed to make a note on anything right there, they could do that little pencil, put their notes in there. Anywhere that you see a little paper clip, you can attach training resources within the platform, okay? And this is not an additional fee either. This is included in the platform. If you're not currently using this, let's get that in there as well. So what I mean by training resources, maybe you need to attach a picture of something so they can see, like, here's our gauges on the dashboard, or, you know, maybe you need to attach a video, like a quick training video, like, you know, maybe, you know, for some of our volunteer departments, they might have volunteers that are only in every 6 months, and maybe they have forgotten how to check the hub oil level because it's been a while and today is the day they need to do it. They can click on this paper clip, it can open up a video for them, and they can go ahead and have that little visual reminder. We know people are visual nowadays, and that's a huge way people are learning now. So that's another really convenient way for them. Instead of just skipping over that check, they can go in there and watch that training video. Anywhere that you see a little red bell icon, this shows us that an alert has already been set on this particular check, right? So we don't want people trying to guess if there's an alert set there. They can click on that bell, they can see an alert's already been set, they don't need to reset that alert again. The other option that's, oh, and here's that red highlighted box I was telling you about. So we would have to go in, do our check here, and enter that tire pressure in there. If we did not, it's not going to let us do that check. Now, I will say that for a lot of our departments, for things like these checks, they will put required notes there. That's going to avoid a lot of that pencil whipping. Another thing that I have seen some of our departments have asked for us, and we don't have it on this check here, but sometimes right here you're going to see a little white box. That's called our check all function, and it enables you know, crew to go and click on that box, and it will mark off all of those at one time. It's not the most popular option. That's where I've heard a lot of people be concerned about that pencil whipping, but some people will want that for like a med kit, for example. Maybe you have a duffel bag and you know everything's, if there's a piece of duct tape or a zip tie on there, and you know everything's still in there, you don't necessarily want to open it up and go through everything again. That might be one of those times that you would enable that check all function. But other than that, that would be another way to avoid that pencil whipping as well. So what I'm going to do here real quick, everybody, is I'm just going to do a few checks. And let's say we do all of these and everything looks good, but let's say we notice, oh, we already have an alert there, so let's not do that. Let's do this one. Let's say we see an oil leak under the vehicle. So we're going to set an alert. So these all look good. This one already has alert. We don't have to set that one. We already know there's body damage. But let's say we do see an oil leak underneath here. We can just type in oil leak. And let's go ahead and log these items that we're currently doing right here. That's another thing about PSTrax. You don't have to do all of the checks at one time and then log them. You can go through and do as many checks as you want at a time. And that we actually recommend that you do 5-10 checks, log your items, do the next one, log your items. That way, if you get called out on a call, it doesn't interrupt the system there. So we've gone ahead and done our checks. We're on a confirmation screen just to verify that everything that we just checked looks exactly the way we want it to. But because we've set that alert, now when I log these tasks here, it's going to take me into an alert confirmation screen. Okay. Couple things I want you to see here, and there are a couple of new features for those of you who may not be aware of this, who are currently using us. We'll touch on those as well. But what I want y'all to see here is this category is going to be the identifying factor of who your alert recipients down here are going to be. Okay, so right now we've got vehicle maintenance marked, and so all of these people have now been identified as the most appropriate people to get these alerts. Okay, so here you can see we've got our little virtual maintenance shop. We've also got some optional people. So here we've got a vendor. Maybe this is a vehicle warranty issue, or you need to report a recall issue to your vendor there. You can include them as well. Maybe there's one person that's not on this list who really never needs to hear vehicle maintenance issues except for today. Today is the one day that they need to know about that. We've just implemented this recently within the last few months, the additional recipients. You can go right down here, find that one person, maybe that's Linda, attach Linda to this, this category now, and now she's going to get this alert just this one time. Maybe she doesn't need to get it all the time. But if we change our category from vehicle maintenance to say like EMS, for example, now you're going to see down here that our alert recipients have changed. And again, you can have as many or as few people down here as you need to be attached to these alerts. We just ask you to look at whatever your best internal policies and procedures are, and we'll set it up that way for you. But for now, we'll go back up here. We'll change it, excuse me, back to vehicle maintenance. Here we have the opportunity of leaving a routine alert or maybe making it an urgent alert. I'm gonna say it's pretty urgent. We don't want that oil leak. Here's where we're gonna attach that picture, all right? So I can go in here. This is the same functionality as attaching a picture to a text or an email, things like that, but you're gonna have to use your imagination because we are on my desktop, so we'll just pull this picture off here and attach it. If you know a cost at this point in time, you can attach that cost in there. We don't know yet, so we're not gonna put anything in there. I'm gonna go ahead and set this alert. And then what you'll see is it's also going to show up right here. All right, so as we can go back and continue to do more checks. We're going to see it here. But also what you're going to see is when we're walking into the station, let's say I walk into the bay and I notice that, we've got an oil leak. I can see it right there underneath there. I can look right here and I can see, oh, it looks like somebody's already identified that. Sally's already said there's an oil leak. I can click on the paperclip. I can say, yep, that's exactly what I'm seeing. Looks like it's already been handled. I don't need to report it again. I'm good to go. As a crew member or as a staff member, I am now done, okay? I have done my checks, I've made my note, I've set an alert, and I can move on with my day. My day is over. So as a front-end user, that's as easy as we wanted it to be. And that functionality happens with the rest of the modules as well, except for controlled substances. It does look a little different. But now let's say we're going to respond to this alert. All right. Let's say I'm one of the people in the maintenance shop and I just got this alert. And I want to go ahead and respond to it. I can go right here. I can add a comment. I can say, thanks, pull service. I can maybe have started an invoice that I want to scan in here, or maybe there's a specific part that I know needs to be ordered, and I know we're going to order from wherever, Amazon or something. I can attach that link here too. So if in the future we need to look that up, it'll be right there. We're not going to close the alert yet because it hasn't been resolved. And here we have the opportunity of sending notification to that same group of recipients or not. I'm big on accountability. So I'm going to say, yes, let's let everybody, I want everybody to see that there's progress being made with this alert. So I'm going to say, yes, let's go ahead and send those people that notification. We'll go ahead and save that. And then what you'll see in real time is there's my response. So everybody can see that there's progress being made on this alert. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and close this alert off. And what I want to point out here is this is really important. Not just anybody is allowed to close off alerts. All right. The way we see most agencies and departments do this is either somebody in an administrative position is allowed to close those off, or frequently we'll see the person who set the alert is the only one allowed to close those off. It really, again, is whatever makes the most sense for your department or your agency. So just let us know and we can set that up. And you can always change that in the future. If you want to, remove somebody from being able to do that, we can show you how to do that. Or you can just say, hey, take Joe off of there, and we can do that for you as well. But what we're going to do is I'm going to complete this process. I'm going to show you how to close off that alert. So we'll go in here. We'll edit this. So here's all of our information. Here's our note. Here was my last response. Here's the reason that we're closing this. We'll just say it's fixed. Here we can add another attachment. Maybe we want to scan in a receipt at this point, or maybe this is a before and after picture. There was damage on the rig. We sent it off to the repair shop. Now it's back and we want to take a before and after picture, maybe for insurance purposes, things like that. We can attach that. Here we can go ahead and put a cost in here. So let's say this was $300. Now the system is going to track all the costs associated with the maintenance of this particular apparatus. We're going to go ahead and say this is closed. And do I want to send notification to that same group of people? I sure do. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes. We'll save that. And then what you'll see is that alert is now gone. Okay. Again, it's not been deleted. It's now been put into the archives. So let's say somebody comes into you now and says, listen, you guys have had a lot of problems with engine 1. I need to see history on that. With admin permission, you can go right up in here into this drop down. We're going to go into the back end now a little bit, okay? So we're going to go into the back end of the system. Again, like I told you, all the modules function very similarly. Here you can see all the different alerts that we can access at this point, but for now, we're just going to stay on our vehicles. We'll go into the alert archive. We can look it up by station. We can look it up by vehicle or apparatus. I'm going to pick engine 1 since that's what we were working on. We can look it up by category. So we can narrow this report down as much as we need to. We can even look it up by who posted it. Maybe we need to see all the ones that Joe did or all the ones that Cliff did. We can narrow it down if we need to do that. Here's where we'll select our date range. Maybe they just want to see for the last month what's been happening with this apparatus. We'll view these search results, and what the system is doing now is it's pulling up a customized alert report to show us all of the alerts that were ever set on engine 1 between August 3rd and today's date right down here. All right, we're going to see the date and the time that the alert was opened, who opened it, when it was closed, and who closed it. We're going to see all the information tied to it, any costs associated with it, whether it was urgent or not. If we wanted to just see, quick details on this one, for example, on August 6th, we could take a quick snapshot here, look at the details. We can see all of the information attached to it, any pictures, if there was a cost entered, and we're also going to know who is made aware of this alert. So we're going to know exactly who is involved in this. If this information is too much, however, and they're like, I didn't really need to see all this, I just don't want to see anything having to do with emergency lights, let's say. We can go into our search bar here and we can type in emergency lights. And now the system's going to narrow this report down even further to only show us what we need to know. about the emergency lights. If we needed to, you know, have a hard copy of this for any reason, we could go right here, print it off the way it is, drop it into an Excel or a PDF, and then there's our hard copy if anybody needed that. So that's the alert portion of the platform. The alert portion works the same for all of the modules, okay? So hopefully that answered any questions on that. One of the things that I did want to touch on, so we have the alerts reports, but also on our vehicles. I kind of wanted to point this out before we go any further. That's not the only report you can run on your vehicles or on any of the modules. It's just one of them. So some of the other examples that we have for reports within the system, we've got out of service reports that you can run, current tasks due, incomplete task summary. This is a big one. People want to know what didn't get done today, or what didn't get done by a certain date. Some of the custom reports that we see that are most popular across the board, things like EMS supplies, SCBA locations, fuel logs is a big one, mileage reports. These are all of some of the just examples of other reports that you can run within the system. So if you needed to see a mileage report, we'll go back just for a month, let's say. We can now see a mileage report on all of our vehicles right down here, miles and hours. In our example, we have miles and hours. Couple other things I wanted to show you on the vehicle module really quickly. I'm watching our time as we do this. Some of the other things that you can do on the back end, as Ryan was talking about earlier, as needed checks are really important. So if crew, let's do this really quick. If a crew member needed to go in and do an as needed check, they would just click right in here. Most anybody is going to have access to the first 3 tasks here. All right. So if a crew member goes out on a call, they've already done their checks for the day, and they go out on a call and they blow a tire. And now they've got to, come back and do a report on that. They can go in and do an as needed check. The rest of these, though, are only going to be accessible to anybody with an admin permission. So being able to deactivate the schedule, record things out of service, setting it to reserve status, moving it. Maybe you need to move it from station 1 to the maintenance shop, or from the maintenance shop to station 7. Editing the apparatus on the back end, managing the apparatus schedule. You're going to have access to all of this information. Again, don't be overwhelmed by everything you see in here. This is all the information that we will put in for you based on what you need. But you can see if you needed to have access to the back end to change something, or make a different note in here, or edit the information in any way, you're going to have access to do that on your own as well. Also, if we needed to look at our vehicle checklist and logs, okay, like I said, as an example, let's say you do go out on a call and God forbid you do blow a tire, and now somebody comes in and says, hey, we need to make sure you've been doing your checks. You can go right in here. You can go into your vehicle checklist and logs. You can look it up by vehicle, by schedule group, by task, by who logged it. Again, if you wanted to track how, how Joe was doing his checks, this is that area where you're going to go in and do that. For now, I'm just going to leave it all so you can see everything. Let's say they want to go back a couple months. They're like, look, prove to us. We need to see, your hard copy or evidence of what these checks, how you're doing your checks. We need to see this. So we're going to go back a couple months here. Now what the system's doing is it's pulling a report that's going to look similar to the alert report, okay? But now what it's doing is it's pulling up a customized report that's going to show us, there we go, sorry about my slow computer, everyone, that's going to show us all the checks that have ever been done on engine 1. So again, we're going to see the date and the time they were done, when they were scheduled to be done, all of the information tied to it, who did them, if there were any notes attached, like we have, there we go. We've got a note here. We can pull that information up. But again, if they look at this and they're like, again, too much information, please just show me anything having to do with tires. We can go into our search bar, type in tires, and the system now will pull up an even more customized report just showing us any of the checks having to do with tires. Okay. Let's quickly go through PPE, SCBA, and critical assets. Again, for a crew member with PPE, they're going to simply go in to the items that are due. They can pick, if they just need to do individually or if they want to log all their gear, they're going to go in. Looks just like the vehicle checks, right? We didn't want this to be confusing. We wanted all these to look the same. They're going to go in. Now, here's that check all function I was telling you about earlier. You'll see if I click on that, it's going to check everything off. That's just an example. You don't have to enable that function, but if you do want it, it's there for you. So they're going to go through, do their checks, set any alerts as needed, schedule repairs or other actions, okay? Notify the appropriate people. That's on the front end for your crew, but on the back end, let's say you're in charge of all the PPE and you need to see an entire gear list. Yes, I know that's new. Oh, that's new. I should share that for those of you who don't know that. As I quickly X out of it because it was in my way. I apologize for that. You can also now search by serial number or ID number. So if you wanted to do that, you could go right in here. If you just needed to find something specific, you could do it that way. So that's a new function for us as well there. We'll just do a full search though. I'm going to go in. We can look it up by user. We can look it up by shift. We can look it up by gear type. All right, but for now, I'm just going to leave it all so you can see what this report looks like. And now what the system has done is it's pulled up every bit of our PPE right down here. We're going to see who it's assigned to. We can batch log things if we need to. We can look at our shift. It's going to have all of this information in here for you on your PPE, serial numbers, ID numbers, model, size, cost. All right, we know this is not cheap. We know the equipment that you guys are getting is extremely important and expensive, and you need to be able to keep track of that. So we've got that all listed down here: description, condition, manufacture date, in-service date. All of this information is at your fingertips. Expiration dates. You can reorder this. Now you can see exactly what has expired or what's coming due to expire. Nothing worse than, I just spoke with a department the other day who just, every one of their helmets expired all at the same time. That's an expensive thing to have to try to figure out. So if we wanted to quickly just kind of go into the details of this particular hood, we could click on the details. On the back end of this, this is now going to show us, again, sorry about my slow computer here, all of the information tied to it, all right, as well as its full history. So we've got all of that information here on the back end. We can also log events, set alerts, edit the information, change its status, all of this information, schedule an event. Maybe we need to go in here and we need to schedule a routine inspection, or we need to schedule a cleaning. We can go in and we can set that date up and that will notify us, or we need to schedule a usage or exposure event. We can do all that, or maybe it's just time to retire this. We can do that as well. So that's quickly on the PPE. SCBA functions very similarly. All right, so there's a couple of ways to do that. If it rolls on the rig, your SCBA is going to be included in your vehicle checks. If, however, and so they would go in, they would retrieve their SCBA items. Again, looks really familiar, right, everyone? So they would go through, they would do their checks, but on the back end, if you're in charge of SCBA, again, you can go in here, you can look it up by type. Yes, we just learned that. Same thing there. We can look it up by type. But for now, we're just going to leave everything the way it is. And again, it looks very similar to PPE. You can go through here. You're going to be able to track your costs. You're going to be able to track maintenance on it. All of this information, when its next hydro is due, when its next flow test is due. All of this information is going to be right here for you as well. Critical assets, we'll do that really quickly. Sorry, guys, I know this is a lot of information to cover, but we're almost through it. Again, the crew is going to go through. They're going to identify what needs to be, if it's present, if it needs to be checked. This goes into the same situation as going through checking each item. On the back end, going to look very similar to SCBA and PPE. Again, yes, we know. Again, you're going to go through and you're going to be able to track all of your high-end items. These are some of the, and there's no limit to the number of assets you can put into the asset module, and everybody has a different idea of what their critical assets are. Some people are like, anything $1,000 or more is important for us to track. Other people are like, nope, anything $500 or more. These are some of the most popular items that we see being tracked within the system, so you can track your fire extinguishers, drones, hydrants are a big one right now. So down here, if we go down here really quick, you can see, we're going to see where it's assigned, because this is also going to track all the movement of your assets. We see that commonly being a huge issue. It might start off with a person and it ends up in a warehouse somewhere, you know, and you want to know how it got there or where it is at one point. You can do that. So these are the different types, your description, where you can track your manufacturer. Look at the cost of things that people are tracking in here. And for what our asset module costs, this is remarkable to me. So your model's serial and ID number, sources. So is this a grant funded? Is this maybe a donation? I don't see, here we go. We've got a grant funded. This is going to track all those sources for you as well. Vendors, address, this is for the hydrant. So if you need to track those addresses, you can track that within the system as well. This is an incredibly important module. They all are, but this one as well. All right. Taking a quick breath, controlled substances. I'm not going to be able to give this as much time as I want, because I think what I'd prefer to do, just looking at our time, instead of going through controlled substances, if that is, because that one needs, it deserves more time than I can give it today. Okay, and I don't even think touching on it is going to help in the way we need to. If you're interested in that module, let me or Robbie know or Ryan know, and let's get you scheduled for an individual time to go over that. What I'd like to do, because we did want to talk about this real quickly, is I'm going to skip over all this. We talked about attaching training resources. We touched on vehicles. We do follow NFPA guidelines on all of our modules. We touched on SCBA. We touched on PPE, critical assets, narcotics, and our station module. Within our station module, we didn't go over that very much, but you can track your building and maintenance, chore schedules, safety inspections, basic, very basic EMS and station supply checks can be tracked underneath here. And again, with all, it works just like all of our other modules. What I'd like to do though, is I would like to, ta-da, let Ryan, because he has worked really hard on this as well. I would like to let Ryan share a little bit more quickly about our very exciting new inventory module. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, Ryan, if that's okay, and turn it over to you. So everybody who has been waiting for this, let's talk about this briefly. Ryan, it is all yours, my friend.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Sally. We'll let you take a little breath there. Appreciate you going through all those modules for us. Okay. Well, good morning, folks. My name is Ryan, and I wanted to talk a little bit about our inventory module that we're going to be releasing to our beta testers next month, and then or actually this month. We're already in September. It's hard to believe. Yep. And then kind of to the general market in October. And for those that are familiar with PSTrax, we've had a station module that, and Sally kind of went over it a little bit today. And we've had that station module for many years, and that's kind of been our way of doing, I'll call it basic EMS checks and station supplies and kind of tracking those items. But there was a need from our clients and from just different departments that we met with to have a more robust capability to track all of your inventory items. And so that's kind of where the need for the inventory module came from. And what it's going to allow you to do is manage all your different consumable supplies and inventories that you have. And probably the biggest use case will be EMS supplies, but you can also do station supplies and even repair parts, those types of things if you want to track, you know, how much you have of each one. And in addition to that, it'll manage all of your different inventory locations. So probably a lot of you have a main inventory location like a warehouse or a main supply room. And then probably at each of your stations, you might have a station supply room that you kind of restock out to. And if you want to get really detailed, you can even go all the way down to tracking different containers and drawers and bags. You don't necessarily have to go to that level, but you can if you'd like to. For each of your inventory items, you'll be able to track the quantity levels. So basically, how much do I have of these items? And there's basically two types of items. You'll have basic items where you just want to know quantities and how much you have. But then there's also going to be more, I call them advanced items, where you'll want to know not only quantities, but also lot numbers and expiration dates as well. So you can track both those types of items within this module and see all that information when you need to. Now, when you originally receive new shipments of supplies, so your orders, get shipped to you and you receive them, you'll be able to restock, excuse me, restock, and basically that'll load those quantities into your system. For anyone that's familiar with our controlled substance module, it'll kind of be a similar process to that. And then basically once we have the items in the system, and typically those items will get loaded into like your main warehouse, then in order to move the items from place to place, we'll be doing transfer events. And so anytime you're moving an item, that's kind of the event that you would use to move it from location to location. You can also, this is optional, but if you'd like, you can document usage events. So what supplies were used on what calls and what incidents. We have some departments around the country that actually are able to charge back their supplies and what they used. And especially if you have a hazmat department, that's a big issue for them, just being able to basically document what supplies were used on what incidents. So that's a capability you can take advantage of if you'd like to. And then finally, the module will also send out automatic alert notifications for par levels and also for expiration dates. And again, you can turn that off or on depending on if you want that or not. But from a high level, that's kind of what the inventory module will do. Now I'm going to hop into some of our screenshots. We actually did do a kind of a live demo for a couple of our beta testers last week, and unfortunately, I don't have permissions to that that development site yet. So I'm just going to be taking you through some screenshots here, and then as Sally mentioned, we're going to have another webinar specifically dedicated to the inventory module. That'll be on Tuesday, September 29th at 9 a.m. Mountain Time. So if you want to actually see the module, and we'll do a live demo of it, please join us for that. But just to show you a couple of screenshots for today, what I'm showing you here is basically what the crew members would do. And so it's going to operate similar to some of our other modules, but they'll be able to come in here and select what type of event they're performing. So I'm doing an inventory count right now, and then they would select what container, excuse me, or what location they're checking. On the next page within that container, it'll list out all the items that are assigned to it. And then the crew member, they can either do an inventory check on all the items, or if they just want to do a check on a few items, they can just check those and then move forward. And then on the next page here, once you have selected your items, this is where you'll actually indicate how much you have on hand. So basically on the right-hand side here, you'll see the quantity on hand, and this is where the crew members can go in and actually, type in what they have currently in their possession. So that's kind of what a inventory check would look like for a crew member. And then we also have transfer events. And again, a transfer event is basically anytime you're moving an item from one spot to another. And so you basically select your source container and then your destination container. On the next page, you would select what items you're transferring. So you can transfer them all if you need to, or just a couple. And then once you've selected your items, this is kind of the transfer page where you indicate how much you're transferring. So the transfer quantity that you're moving from your source container to your destination container. And then basically just hit the transfer items button at the bottom, and that'll officially transfer those in the system. So those are some screenshots of what the crew members would do. Again, we try to keep it pretty easy and straightforward for them. On the admin side, we have a few pages similar to some of the gearless pages that Sally was showing you for SCBA and PPE and critical assets. Essentially, we'll have another page kind of like that for the inventory items, and the main one will be the inventory one right here, the inventory tab. And this basically will show you all of your different items. It'll show you all of your locations, so you can filter down by either, you know, a building or an apparatus or whatever you'd like to. You can sort by an item as well and just see all the locations for a particular item. It'll also show you the quantity on hand, your par levels, max par differential, min par differential. So all that main information, as an administrator, this will be kind of the main page you live on. And again, you can filter by these categories to see what you're low on, what needs to be restocked, etc. And then there's a few other buttons up here at the top. I won't go into these in much detail. These are kind of the structure components. So when we build the module for you initially, this is what we have to set up. So obviously we have to set up all the different types of items that you want to track, and then also the containers or the locations that you want to track. And then finally, we also have vendors. So if you want to kind of associate your products to different vendors, so at the end of the year, you can pull up a report and see what you've spent from different vendors. That's what that will allow you to do. And then we, as part of phase 2, we're going to add an additional button here for orders. And basically the orders will allow you to create like a PO, a basic purchase order that you can send off to your vendor. And then it'll track kind of a status of that order. And then once you receive it, you'll be able to basically kind of load those items into the system. So right now, like I mentioned, we already have a restock that allows you to load in items from a vendor, but that orders will kind of just be a little more comprehensive and allow you to create purchase orders and then track those orders. So I'll pause there. I saw some questions flying in.
I did too. I was like, oh, look at all the questions coming in.
Which I'm not surprised by, since this is a brand new module. So Robbie, do you want to run through those and I can see if I can answer them?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan, for taking a quick pause. Eric, thank you for the question, Eric. So he's asking if a transfer event can be dedicated or issued directly to a person. Gives an example. For example, a uniform item like a yearly issued number of polo shirts, boots, footwear, and jacket.
Yeah, great question, Eric. And actually, all those type of PPE items, those would actually fall under our PPE module. And anything that you're assigning out to a person, you can assign those items in that PPE module. And then obviously, if they get reassigned at some point, you can reassign them to another person as well.
Great. And let's see. Susan asks, is it too difficult for an end user to make changes? It looks like specifically to potentially one thing you mentioned. Sorry, Susan, I may have missed exactly what that was. If you don't mind typing that in.
Yeah, I don't know, Susan, if you could elaborate maybe on in terms of what you're referring to on that, that'd be great. You might be referring to the fact that we help you kind of build it all, and we do that kind of at the. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Robbie.
Ryan, yeah, sorry.
I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, configuration changes like a new vehicle and alerts.
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'll take that one, Sally.
You go for it, Ryan.
Since I'm unmuted. Yeah, Susan, basically when, if you sign up with PSTrax, we build the whole platform for you initially just to get it rolled out for you. But any of those new changes, you can make those yourself if you'd like to. You don't have to rely on us by any means. But we always say if it's going to take you more than 10 or 15 minutes, you can call us up and we'll take care of it for you. So kind of best of both worlds. You can do it yourself if you'd like to. Just hop in and take care of it. Or like you mentioned, Susan, if you get a new vehicle and you want to just let us know, we can set up that new vehicle for you. And there's no additional charge for that customer support. That's just part of our annual fee that we offer.
Exactly. And like Ryan said, we know that in every department, and maybe Susan, you're this person and you love technology, it would probably, you would be able to pick up on it very quickly and how to make those changes yourself. It's not that it's difficult, it's that sometimes it's just too time consuming. And for some people it might seem difficult, but it can be time consuming for departments that just don't have the time. So, but if you want to do it, by all means, we'll train you on that.
Yeah, and Susan, I apologize. I was looking back at your questions, and towards the beginning of the presentation, you had asked about how you can export data, and then the second component was about hosting, kind of how is the data secured.
Oh,
And I apologize, I didn't touch on that initially, so I wanted to answer that for you. So our system is actually hosted with rackspace.com, and then we back it up with Amazon Web Services. So those are kind of the two top hosting providers in the country. I'm sure you're probably familiar with them. And so that's where all of our data is stored and secured. So they're obviously, they have top tier hosting data centers around the country. All of our data is here in the US, stored in those data centers. So just wanted to answer that for you.
thanks. I didn't even see that, Ryan.
Yeah, yeah, I missed it too. So
I haven't been watching the questions come in. I've been talking, letting you guys filter through that. So thank you.
yeah, no, and just to kind of conclude my part on the inventory module, again, I'm sure there's probably some more specific questions. We're going to be doing that, the full webinar on Tuesday, September 29th at 9 a.m. Mountain Time for that. We're also, at that time, we'll go through some of the pricing and some of that information as well, once we have more details on that. So stay tuned, and hopefully you can join us for that one. And with that, Sally, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to you.
Awesome. Yeah, I just have a couple other things, guys, and then we will let you go for the day. I appreciate all of your patience this morning. We've talked about you know, the different, what sets us apart from our competitors. Again, we are going to build this for you. We're going to train you. We're going to make sure it's rolled out. We're going to help support you in any ongoing changes you have. If you have more questions on pricing, please reach out to myself, Robbie, or Ryan. We'd be happy to put some information together for you. So keep that in mind as well. And as Ryan talked about, the upcoming webinars that you can see here that we have coming up on September 5th, we're going to be going over one for tracking DEA Schedule 2, 3, and 4 controlled substances. Then on the 22nd, we are doing virtual roadshows right now since we can't travel. We're doing them virtually. So Alsip Fire Department, one of our champions out in Illinois, has agreed to host one for us on the 22nd. Then our inventory module that we were just talking about is on the 29th. And then we have another roadshow, again, East Glenville up in New York. Those guys have invited us to speak with them on the 29th as well. Thank you for your time this morning. We know how busy you are. We know how crazy the times are right now. So thank you so much for your time. If you have any questions at all, please let us know. Robbie will be sending you a copy of this. So if you were registered with us today, we will send you a video or a recording of our webinar. And if you have any questions, all of our information is right here for you. Please do not hesitate for a second to reach out to us and ask us for our help. That's what we're here for. You guys have been awesome. Thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye.